when Steve gets up. We'll do it when Steve gets up. Okay, that'll be beautiful. Beautiful. So, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for being here. I want to thank my great partners who have fought for years to get this monumental piece of legislation passed. Our great Democratic Majority Leader, Chuck Schumer. Thank you. John Cornyn from Texas, who has just been such a great leader on this issue. My Democratic partner, Tina Smith, for all of your great leadership. We're also going to be joined by Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, Congressman Danny Davis, and Steve Williams, who is the president of the National Juneteenth Observance Foundation. And I want to take a moment to recognize and thank Miss Opal Lee, who is a true gem in the fight for Juneteenth. An educator and an activist, Miss Opal Lee has been a voice for history, and we would not be standing here today without her tireless work to make this holiday a reality. Today, we join together to celebrate a momentous day in American history, a step forward for racial equality and a clarion call for us to do even more. A day in which we finally acknowledge our nation's ugly past and in which we recommit to fixing the injustices that our country still faces. Today, we celebrate the Senate passage of the Juneteenth National Independence Day Act and come one step closer to commemorating Juneteenth as a federal holiday. And this afternoon, the House of Representatives is poised to take a vote and send our legislation one step closer to President Biden's desk. For far too long, the story of our nation's history has been incomplete. The truth has been hidden as we have failed to acknowledge, address, and come to grips with our nation's original sin of slavery. We cannot ignore the ugly toll that it took, and we cannot turn away as it continues to worsen inequality and injustice for Black Americans today. The disparate treatment and mistreatment of Black and brown Americans still permeates our society. It infects our courts, our schools, our hospitals, and our places of work. It reflects the unfulfilled promise of a nation built upon the notion that all are created equal. And it has its roots in our nation's original sin, slavery, a crime against humanity that we have for far too long failed to fully acknowledge, address, and come to grips with. Juneteenth is the holiday that fills that gap in our history, that recognizes the wrong that was done, that acknowledges the pain and the suffering of generations of slaves and their descendants, and that finally celebrates their freedom. Juneteenth is a reminder that none of us are free unless we are all free. The Senate passage of our legislation yesterday brings us one step closer to that full acknowledgement. The celebration of Juneteenth dates back to June 19th, 1865, when Union soldiers, led by Major General Gordon Granger, traveled to Galveston, Texas, with the announcement that the Civil War had ended and that the enslaved were now free. This was 2.5 years after the date of President Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation. But either the news of Lincoln's order had not yet reached many, including those in Texas, or local officials refused to enforce it. So while freedom was delayed for Black Americans following the end of the Civil War, we will delay no longer in recognizing the day it finally arrived by making Juneteenth a federal holiday. The Juneteenth National Independence Day Act does not right the wrongs of our nation's past, but it finally gives recognition and voice to those who suffered. It finally makes this day of celebration and liberation recorded history. As Marcus Garvey famously wrote, "A people without knowledge of their past history, origin, and culture is like a tree without roots." This is an important step. We are recognizing the truth of our history and the missing half of the story of our nation's freedom and independence. And our work continues. There is still more work to be done to ensure justice for all, to rid of the inequities that continue to plague our nation, and to make black liberation a reality for every American. So we thank all of you for being here today on this momentous occasion. And now I would like to introduce our great Majority Leader, Chuck Schumer.
Well, thank you, Senator Markey. It is a beautiful, beautiful late spring day, and it's as if the heavens are celebrating a recognition of freedom. Now, let me just say I want to thank Senator Markey for his great leadership on this issue, joined by our colleague on our side of the aisle, Senator Smith. Senator Cornyn, thank you for your leadership, and in the House, Representatives Jackson Lee, Danny Davis, and so many others, and Steve Williams, who has been so fabulous and relentless in making sure that this happens. Now, yesterday, the Senate came together, and we passed unanimously, the bill that says Juneteenth is a federal holiday. It was an important moment for recognizing our history, not shrinking from it, not sweeping it under the rug, not denying it, but staring it directly in the face. If signed into law, the bill would finally give due recognition to one of the most underappreciated events in our nation's history. The day that Union generals arrived in Galveston and informed enslaved African Americans that the war was over and that they were finally free. 2.5 years after the Emancipation Proclamation was issued. Juneteenth unquestionably deserves a place among our nation's most important celebrations, but it will be a day of remembrance as well as a day of celebration. Like Martin Luther King Day, it'll be a day for Americans to reflect on the great unfinished business of our society, the long march to achieve full justice for all our citizens. When I was in the House, I worked hard to make MLK Day a national holiday, and this is a fitting other end of the book in a certain sense, now that Juneteenth is finally being recognized. By making Juneteenth a federal holiday, we're recognizing the sins of the past, grappling with them, teaching them, and learning from them as we work towards a more perfect union. It'll be the only federal holiday that recognizes the terrible legacy of slavery, as well as the noble truth that none of us are free until we are all free. So thank you to my colleagues here, and those who couldn't be. I want to mention Senator Booker. He couldn't be here because of a family situation, an illness in his family, as well as the volunteers and activists and caretakers of our nation's history who push this long overdue recognition that this legislation is a tribute to your efforts. I greatly look forward to seeing the House pass the bill later today and sending it to the President's desk by the end of the week.
Thank you. Thank you, Leader Schumer. Now we'll recognize our Republican partner on the legislation, Senator Cornyn from Texas. Thank you.
Thanks, Ed. There's nothing more powerful than an idea whose time has come. And it seems to me that this is the most propitious time for us to recognize our history and to learn from it. And that's the way I regard Juneteenth. This is nothing new to the state of Texas. We've had it a state holiday for the last 40 years. But I believe that there's no better time than the present, particularly given the strife we've seen, the level of distrust, for example, between law enforcement and the communities they serve, than to acknowledge our nation's history and to learn from it. Our founders didn't believe they were creating a perfect union, but they said they wanted to strive to create a more perfect union. And so acknowledging and learning from the mistakes of the past is critical to making that progress and becoming a more perfect union. I look forward to spending Juneteenth celebrating in Galveston this weekend. I believe Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, who's been my partner in the House working on this, worked with all of us, it will be there as well. So this is a great day, and I'm particularly delighted to hear that Leader Hoyer said they were going to take up and pass the Senate bill later today, and hopefully the President will sign it quickly. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Cornyn. And now, Senator Tina Smith and I have been partnered for 2 Congresses as Democrats to move this legislation through. The great senator from Minnesota.
Thank you so much. I'm so honored to stand here with all of my colleagues today and to have had the opportunity to put a little bit of my shoulder into this long effort. So it's an honor to be here with all of you. Juneteenth is our nation's oldest celebration of emancipation, and it should have been established as a federal holiday long ago. But I'm really glad that yesterday the Senate took this important step of passing this legislation, and I'm so grateful again for the work that I know is left to be done by Representative Jackson Lee and others to make sure that it passes the House as well. The end of slavery in this country is a crucial milestone in all of our history, and Juneteenth should be commemorated nationwide as a day of celebration, but also reflection and rededication to the cause of racial justice. I think a lot about the activists that have worked so hard to bring this to the forefront of our attention here in Washington, D.C. And I particularly want to call out Ms. Opal Lee, who was at 89 years old. She walked halfway across this country to deliver signatures to Congress urging us to take action on this. I was blessed to meet Ms. Lee twice. And yesterday afternoon, I had the opportunity to call her right after the bill cleared the Senate. And I wish everyone could have heard the sound of joy in her voice as she heard that the Senate had taken this step. Ms. Lee, I am honored to support your activism and your organizing and your moral cause, all of our moral cause. And I look forward to the day when we can celebrate Juneteenth in person. Commemorating Juneteenth as a federal holiday is an encouraging and meaningful step. And we have so much farther to go on the path towards justice in this country. So I think we need to use this victory to build momentum for the systemic change that we need in this country around voting rights, passing meaningful policing and criminal justice reform, pursuing economic and environmental justice, and working towards a more just and equitable country for all of us. So I know that this path sometimes seems long and hard, but today we pave it a little bit further. Thank you so much, and I'm honored to be standing here next to Representative Jackson Lee.
The honor is mine. Senator Markey, whom we have served long with in the United States House, now in the Senate, to Senator Cornyn, my counterpart from Texas, Senator Smith, we welcome you. And my longtime resonating baritone, deep-voiced next-door neighbor, Danny Davis. It is a pleasure to be with you today. As I skip away, I'll be skipping away to the floor. As we heard the sounds of joyful noise coming across the august halls to the House of Representatives late yesterday evening, we immediately grabbed whoever I could on the floor to be able to say we must do this. It has come to that point. H.R. 1320, which is the bill that we filed with over 160 sponsors and growing, and as well with bipartisan support, now had legs and life with the Senate bill and the unanimous approval. It was then we began to work and seek the support of our friends across the aisle, but delighted with the leadership of Leader Hoyer, Speaker Pelosi, Whip Clyburn, Chairman Jeffries, and others of the leadership as I pressed them to early this morning to be able to say that whatever mechanism we had, we needed to do it. The Rules Committee met at 12:15, a bionic meeting. I want you to know that. We are scheduled to be on the floor at 2 o'clock. So let me give the emotion of my feeling. First of all, Danny, it's been a good journey, and you are a friend. And we have similar histories. And so as I look at the wonderful skies, don't know how this man from Boston was able to get such a beautiful day. But what I see here today is racial divide crumbling, being crushed this day under a momentous vote that brings together people who understand the value of freedom. And that is what Juneteenth is all about. It is a journey of pain, brutality, separation, and the racist hand of people held in bondage. But yet, 47 states have taken up a commemoration and celebration because there's something about freedom that is contagious. And that is what this holiday will bring about. We will ignore critical race theory, Senator Markey. We'll be able to talk about the value of our mutual history. We'll understand Harriet Tubman, Sojourner Truth, Frederick Douglass, and many others who did not look like me. And so this holiday will be given life. I pray that it is voted on by the rule that we have crafted and then on to the floor, and that President Joe Biden signs this national holiday. Let me close by simply saying there are millions to thank. I spoke with Opal Lee today. Oh boy, she was rejoicing. 1.6 million petitions came to us during this time frame and more. She did walk. We were amazed. It was hot when she brought them here. And the late Representative Al Edwards, who was the father of Juneteenth in Texas and created the state holiday. I don't want to start anything, but my office will be closed on Friday because it is on Saturday. And so I wanted to express that emotion and my commitment by closing that office. And again, let me say, I hear the bells of freedom. And as well, Senator Markey, Senator Smith, Senator Cornyn, and all of our supporters, Danny Davis, today we have crushed racial divide, and we are in fact unified around freedom. Thank you all so very much. I've got to go and hopefully not preach to the House of Representatives. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sheila Jackson Lee. and now from Danny Davis from the great city of Chicago.
Let me just be very brief and commend the Senate for leading us to where we need to be this afternoon. I also want to thank the state of Texas for being a state that has gone forward. But also, in addition to Ms. Lee, there's another activist, Dr. Ron Myers, who for years and years was a practicing physician in Greenville, Mississippi, but found a way to be all over the country pushing Juneteenth. I remember when Barack Obama was a senator, he and I used to collaborate each year and put on a Juneteenth event here in the Capitol. One year it would be in the House, the next year it would be in the Senate, and now it's all come into fruition. It's just a great day for America. And so, Dr. Myers, we thank you, though you're not here with us, because you've gone on to glory. It's a great day. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Danny. Thank you for your great leadership over all the years. And finally, we're going to hear from Steve Williams, the president of the National Juneteenth Observance Foundation. Congratulations, Steve. Fantastic.
Thank you, Senator Markey, Senator Smith, Danny. Thank you very much. My name's Steve Williams. I'm the president of the National Juneteenth Observance Foundation. And Danny got me off guard because if you've been in the Juneteenth legislation movement, you cannot help but know the Reverend Ronald V. Myers, Sr., MD, who traveled to over 43 states to raise the message of Juneteenth. We thank Doc and the effort that he did to bring us here. We thank the House of Representatives for all the work that they are going to do to put that exclamation mark on the fabulous work that Senator Markey, Senator Cornyn, Senator Smith has done. The Juneteenth Nation is ecstatic. Our mission, as defined by Dr. Myers, was to bring all Americans together to enjoy the common bond of freedom through the historic recognition, preservation, and recognition of Juneteenth in America. And by this legislation, this will be done. The first thing, awareness of Juneteenth for America. And the National Juneteenth Observance Foundation, its directors, board of directors, its planners, and event planners around the country will be ecstatic upon seeing this news after all the many years of working and many years of calling representatives, calling senators, telling them to push for Juneteenth at the urgency and the tutelage of Dr. Myers. we really appreciate the United States government for coming in and recognizing and putting Juneteenth at the level of corporate America, and we look forward to President Biden signing it into law, as he had probably said in 2013 at the Frederick Douglass Statue initiation on Juneteenth, that it was an important day. So we are extremely happy. And one last thing, we're all here and behind the scene, and we've talked about Doc Myers and the contributions that he's made, but we also have to really reach out to his family, because he couldn't have done it without them. Sylvia Myers, his beautiful wife, and the rest of his children, they made the sacrifice for America to get us all where we're at today. So we have a saying amongst us, and we're going to leave it with you, and that saying is all things Juneteenth. All things Juneteenth.
And tell the story of the flag, would you?
Oh, okay. So the flag was designed by NJOF member Ben Haft in 1997. The flag has a specific meaning. It is the interpretation of what is seen when Black Americans have looked at the flag since its inception. We have served the American flag in every single war, but this is the interpretation of the flag. We are following the bursting star of freedom into a new horizon, not only for us, but for all of America, okay? And this is the meaning of the flag, and this is the symbolism of the flag that brings unity to America. We're all Americans first, and we look forward to that day when we're no longer Irish Americans, no longer Mexican Americans, no longer Italian Americans, no longer African Americans, but Americans.
Beautiful. Thank you. Great. Thank you. Questions from anyone?
What happened to bring this about yesterday on the Senate floor, in your understanding?
Well, I'm not going to get into the behind the scenes of what happened, only to say that it happened, and here we are celebrating that day. So that was just a very small moment in the whole history of this fight to come here today to celebrate.
Have you been in talks with President Biden about when he might sign the legislation and whether that will happen before this year's Juneteenth?
Again, President Biden has been in preparation for his meeting with President Putin over the last 24 hours. This, passed by unanimous consent just last night, and I think he was meeting with Putin today. So we'll be communicating to the White House, though, in terms of getting a signature of the president on this bill very soon.
Senator Markey?
Yes.
Senator Cornyn left, but he authored a letter with McConnell earlier this year raising concerns about what he called divisive propaganda, the 1619 Project, critical race theory. Do you see Republicans and his specifically opposition to that in conflict with him acknowledging Juneteenth as acknowledging history and something for, he said that the time has come for this? It seems to be in conflict with one another.
Well, I'm just glad that we're celebrating here today, and we do know that there's a movement to erase history with attacks on critical race theory, in teaching children about the presence of racism systemically in our country's history. And to a certain extent, that's what this celebration today does. It acknowledges that. It acknowledges slavery as the original sin built into the fabric of the United States Constitution. And we celebrate its eradication formally, but we can't celebrate how deeply racism, as a result of America's policies in the past, is still built into educational, healthcare, housing, and every other policy in our country. So, yes.
Senator Markey, the future of the voting rights bill and policing bills are still unclear in the Senate. Is this bill enough, or is this just a way that you see that it provides cover for the GOP or people like she asked that have differing opinions than some of the other?
Well, I obviously believe that we need to pass Senate 1, voting rights. We need to pass gun safety legislation. We need to pass comprehensive prison reform, criminal justice reform legislation in this Congress. But at the same time, we celebrate today because that is a recognition of a foundational, critical disease which we actually built into the formation of our country. Please.
Well, of course, today is not enough. There's so much more work left to be done, but this is an important day because it is a piece of pavement on that path towards justice. But that path has got to be shaped by passing voting rights legislation, by passing criminal justice reform, and the work that Senator Booker is working on so hard with Senator Scott. And this is not a moment for complacency. This is a moment to rededicate ourselves to that work, and I believe that everybody up here feels that strongly.
And again, I want to acknowledge the work that Senator Booker, Cory Booker from New Jersey, played in making today possible as well. I just can't thank him enough for all of his great work. Thank you all so much for coming out here today. Thank you, Tina. Congratulations.